Welcome to Undercurrents, our deep dives that dig into the trends that we believe could drastically change, improve, or disrupt the way that many co-working businesses and co-working related businesses run all around the world. In this edition, we're going to dig into the new revenue stack and how after around 20 years of co-working, we're starting to see some major shifts in what we offer, how we monetize, how we provide hospitality, but also how we create more profitable and more sustainable businesses. We're going to dig into expert-led insights, what's worked, what hasn't worked, what operators would recommend, what they would recommend avoiding, and all of this stuff that happens in the messy middle of trying to build great, sustainable, community-driven co-working businesses. Undercurrents are produced and distributed online in PDF, audio, and video so that their content is as accessible to as many co-working leaders as possible around the world for free. To do so, each Undercurrent edition is underwritten or sponsored by one partner. This edition is brought to you by Syncaroo. At Syncaroo, we've seen time and time again that unblocking a flex space's best people not only boosts their job satisfaction and efficiency, but also drives up the firm's profitability. Much of our work involves helping workspace operators shift from an outdated people smushed together with tech stack approach to what we like to refer to as an operating stack, where technology is orchestrated around the day-to-day workflows that enable your people to do their best work. We're constantly inspired by the improvements, pivots, optimizations, and entirely new flex-based products that teams on the ground can develop and introduce when they're unburdened and unblocked from their error-prone, repetitive, often on-screen busy work. To follow up from our last Undercurrents edition that we sponsored on fractional offices, we wanted to dig a little bit deeper into some of the new revenue sources that have worked, those that didn't, from leaders all across a broad spectrum of co-working spaces. We hope that you enjoy this edition and that it inspires your next big moves. As always, Undercurrent editions are filled with insights from experts from across the co-working world. Interviews in this edition were recorded throughout 2025 and feature insights from these amazing leaders.
I'm Anne Olsen. I'm the director of co-working for the domain companies, and our co-working brand is the Shop Workspace.
Hey, it's Megan. I am the COO and partner of 25 North Coworking.
My name is Sheila Burmistrova. I go by Shy, and I'm the founder and CEO of Nara Collective.
Gregg Jackowitz, and I'm with Bond Collective.
My name is Tobi Skovron. I'm based down in Melbourne, Australia. I founded a company called Cubes.co, and I am the executive director of the group.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sofia Stolberg. I'm CEO and co-founder of Piloto 151 Co-working Spaces and Piloto Mail.
So before we dive into the insights we gathered from these teams, I want to start with three fundamental observations that we've seen throughout 2025. The one, monumental shifts in what we offer, but also what companies and individuals are now expecting from physical spaces, be it for work, for production, for creativity, for rest, for gathering, and how that impacts our businesses and the products that we can put together. Another paradigm shift is the fact that many operators are waking up to the realization that not every revenue source is created equal. When it comes to blended overheads, tricky margins, human capital, all of these coming together are allowing operators to really figure out which products they should double down on, which they should pull back on, and where sustainability lies between creating the best approachable and accessible products compared to just chasing the bottom line. Now, the last point I want to note is the fact that everyone we spoke to, not only in these interview sets, but throughout the year at conferences and in the newsletter and our other conversations, the same similar subset of trends and shifts are being seen and felt across every type of co-working business, from an indie 1 to 3 location operator all the way through to multinational operators, as well as the same trends and demands and expectations being felt across almost every region. Now, obviously, there are nuances around the types of spaces and the types of customers that are driving the tremendous growth we're seeing in India, the landlord pushed approaches out of the rest of APAC, and also the more measured and strategic growth we're now seeing across the US. With those three, let's dive into what is actually happening and changing in the revenue stack of co-working businesses. Before we can dive into the emerging changes, we should probably look at what the average rev stack looks like in 2025. While chatting to our experts, they each shared the rough percentage breakdown of their revenue across traditional memberships, hot desks, flex desks, co-working, etc., on-demand products, meeting rooms, event spaces, day offices and passes, and offices and other. Other being the interesting one, which includes some really fun things that they're going to share with us in this edition. Averaging out their numbers, we get to a rough average stack that looks like this. Private offices still account for around 72.5% of revenue across the 6 entities. What's interesting though is what the remaining 27.5% indicates about the rev stack. While 8.8% of the total revenue is attributed to traditional co-working membership type products, on-demand products now account for 7.2%. So we're seeing on-demand and traditional kind of balancing out, kind of both coming towards that 8% level. The other 11.5% though, that's coming from offerings that are new, experimental, or not traditionally bundled into the co-working value proposition. So what exactly are operators putting together that's different or non-traditional? Let's start there.
We have been playing around more with just like monetizing hospitality. We have a pretty robust food and beverage offering. So when people do have on-demand bookings, charging administrative fees for helping them, make sure that they have the best local bagels for breakfast, covering all of their coffee needs, that kind of thing. And then even beyond that, we're really working to facilitate a more robust concierge program. So Valentine's Day, facilitating pre-orders of floral bouquets for our members. So just helping take things off of their list, keeping a small fee because there is work that goes into it, and then also making sure that we're supporting the local florists in the making. So there's all of these kind of things at play that have nothing to do with how much space any of them take up, but there are definitely ways to pull in additional revenue. And I continue to be surprised by the things that we're able to pull in and the things that people will pay for, which is, it's a good thing always, but it's fun to stay really creative there for sure.
We do quite a bit. So I would say our package revenue is significant. So we do meeting room packages. We don't include any kind of hours per month for anyone unless they have a larger group or a larger space. And that's just part of the deal that we work out with them. We do mail, of course. We'll do scanning and forwarding and any kind of virtual memberships. We'll do community events. That's a separate membership as well. We do concierge and catering services. That's an add-on for meeting rooms and event services. We do installation and service. So we'll do custom IT packages, depending on what your compliance requirements are. We'll do a lot of different printing packages. We have a design firm under our umbrella. It's called Workplace Studio. So because of that, we're able to do quite a bit of tenant improvement or design services as well. So that's something that we're able to tack on for people. Then we do different storage options, lockers or custom storage, depending on what they need. So we work really closely with our landlord and developer to make sure that we're able to offer that product.
One of the things that we do a lot of, which has been increasing, significantly, is productions. So, movie shoots, they'll use us, they'll come and they'll rent us for a week, sometimes a couple months. They'll use it as a writing room. So they'll get a bunch of writers coming in here, they'll work together. We have a really good community of production crews and scouts that love using our locations because A, it's good for the writing rooms, but then they also use it for the actual shoots themselves. So they'll come in, they'll rent our spaces. If it's a movie, or if it's a show that needs office space or conference rooms or some kind of scene within that, we do a lot of rentals. I would say we're doing at least 5 to 6 per month. And what's great about it is the scouts that come in, there's not a lot of back and forth. I mean, they come in, when they're doing these shoots, they already have a budget. Budget for location is set. You can maybe wiggle it a little bit, but they're very upfront about it. They'll say, hey, I need a writing room. I need it for 4 weeks. This is what I need. It has to have this many desks, this many chairs, or no desks and chairs because we're using it as a fitting room. And this is what we're willing to pay. And it's usually pretty competitive rates. And it's great ancillary income for us because we can give them vacant offices, especially if it's for a week or two and it's in the middle of the month. It's typically not an office that we're going to rent mid-month. So it's really great revenue, and we're really focusing on pushing this across our locations. And given what's going on with just production in general in New York, there's now a New York tax incentive for production crews to come back to New York. So we're seeing a really, really big increase in demand for production suites.
So a lot of what we try to do here at the Shop Workspace is when it comes to process, procedure, how things are happening, we are looking for things that are easy, built in, repeatable, right? So before we really take on any new, all right, I'm going to tell someone that they have to pay for this and hopefully they'll just pay for it. It is a lot of consideration about what are we currently doing? How does it exist within our current day-to-day operations? To most effectively answer your question of how all that kind of weaves into our other income goals, I'm going to take you back to the beginning of the shop. So specifically Salt Lake City, I promise I'll be brief. Salt Lake City, through many TV shows and just news, is well known as a soda destination. People are very into dirty soda here. We have some soda giants, Thirst, Swig, right? All of them here. And when we were building out the shop in Salt Lake City, we were working to mirror the beverage program in New Orleans. New Orleans offers beer on tap. Legally, you cannot do that in Salt Lake City. So imagine the surprise of my C-suite when I said, we really need to put in a soda fountain. It was a tough sell, but ultimately worked very well. So once we put in our soda fountain, Diet Coke on demand for anyone in Salt Lake, we got it. We started thinking about how else can we elevate the beverage program experience at the shop, because every co-working space has coffee, or at least should. If you don't, I think that's a great first step. But every space has coffee of some sort. And we started thinking okay, we can do drip coffee. How do we do one better? Okay, let's also make sure we have cold brew on tap. And then let's also make sure that we have an espresso option. And we built this into our operating budget because we know that having your perfect beverage is such a critical part of your morning. I'm a creature of habit. So I wake up every morning, I go to my little Nespresso machine. I have certain pods I like. I have certain cream I like. For me, it's important to be able to mirror that experience and have those creatures of habit feel like everything that they need is at their fingertips when they come to the shop. It's it helps it feel like home. And we thought about, okay, we have the tea. We have 4 different kinds of milk. We have the Torani syrup. We have the soda, we have the cold brew. How do we make sure that we're also monetizing this for people who are with us for shorter periods of time? For people who are not those creatures of habit by the function of they're just not in the space regularly. So that led to us actually starting to sell unlimited passes to our food and beverage offering, particularly on the beverage side, to people coming in for conference rooms. So we charge per head $10. That's our flat rate. You get unlimited access to as many beverages as you want throughout the day. Best part about it, price per beverage on a glass of soda, 8 cents, right? You want to talk about coffee, you want to talk about lattes, it goes up a little bit, but never more than $1. If you go to the Starbucks or Salt Lake Roasting Co. up the street, you're paying $5-6 for a latte. So if you want a team that's properly caffeinated and hydrated as well, $10 per person doesn't seem too shabby, right? And it's a very frequent add-on that people have. $10 per person generates a decent amount of revenue for us when we have conference room bookings in, anywhere between 8 to 20 people. Alternatively, we have a menu of some of our favorite partners where if you want breakfast, lunch, or even a dinner, if you're having a later meeting, you pick from it. We have these preset menus. We know exactly how much it is price per head, 15% administrative fee on top of that we keep. And it's just this machine, super easy to facilitate. And together we can see over $1,000 in additional revenue month over month of people just taking us up on these things that are second nature for
Virtual mailbox is doing very good since we launched it just this June. The challenge has been getting that CMRA approval, but we have found that in the current landscape, since we really support business owners and new founders, having mailing services and address is very important to them. And we see that as a driver, they start off as like a virtual mailbox client, then they start working at our space.
There are a lot of add-ons when it comes to virtual offices or memberships in general, and we love that type of revenue. It's what I call good revenue. Anything that is scalable beyond your square feet is what I call great revenue, right? The rest of it, if it's membership driven, it's great. If it's one-off, it's not as great. But one of the things that you can see clearly when you structure your virtual offices correctly and for scale is that you do have quite a bit of revenue coming in from add-ons. And then, of course, quite a bit of revenue coming in from postal mail management. And those two revenue buckets are not created equal, they're different, but a well-structured virtual office offering will have add-ons. And the types of add-ons that I love, right? Additional entities. I think it's the most important and overlooked add-on for virtual office memberships for sure, but also for other memberships. And that is the concept that you might have a ton of serial entrepreneurs at your spaces and you're not capitalizing on it. So we have members that have 40 different companies that they've registered, maybe with different partnerships. And guess what? Every single one of those corporations needs a business address and they're going to start receiving postal mail, right? So the key there for that particular add-on is you don't want to charge the same amount that you charge for your traditional virtual office, right? Because that's not sustainable and it won't get that person to then use your services for the 39 other companies that they have, right? You want to make sure that it's discounted and quite heavily, right? For our additional entities, we charge $35 more. But then we have those clients that have 40 different memberships with us. And that's a great add-on that I can't speak more highly of.
So we have Creative Cubes and we have Corporate Cubes. Corporate Cubes is formerly Workspace 365 Victoria. We acquired them just a little over 12 months ago. It blows my mind how much that business does in virtuals. Combined, it's probably equal to one of our centers. So 5 of their centers in virtual business equates to one of our smaller centers in total monthly revenue.
Beyond the offices, the desk that we offer, one thing that I think is really doing great is our event space business. So we have found in the beginning that there really is a very high demand for event space, whether that's a private event or a practitioner that's looking for something to conduct workshops, yoga sessions, networking, and everything in between, that we started developing a membership around that so that it's more accessible for these groups and organizations. And from our end, it also stabilizes and makes our revenue more predictable and more stable.
We're a very diverse group here at Piloto. What that means is that, yes, we do a lot more than just the co-working, and it's not necessarily under the same umbrella, but it does happen and becomes part of the value add for our members, right? So examples of that include soft landing services. We are based in Puerto Rico, as many of you know. Come visit. And we have great tax incentives. So we actually do all of those soft landing services as well, which include incorporation. And that's great for us because since we do the incorporation, that means that we're also using our Piloto 151 space business address as the address for those new incorporations, which in turn means that those clients are going to be longer term clients and the lifetime value of that client is going to increase, right? So it's all connected. We help people relocate to the island. So If you're an entrepreneur or you're looking to exit sometime soon, then you might want to consider moving down to Puerto Rico, and we can help you with all the relocation process as well.
We're really hyper-focused right now on NLA, non-lettable area revenue. We already have the NLA as a cost center in our P&L. So how can we squeeze the lemon, but not for the sake of squeezing the lemon, but add true value to an experience and service? So our virtual business is quite significant. Our Rise network is not significant today, but is growing faster than any other business unit that we've had historically. Our podcasting business is a cost center in terms of NLA, but it's a revenue generator not only for our business, but it's actually a huge revenue generator for our ad network. We have 15,000 members. And so we have a lot of companies approaching us saying, how can we tap your audience with our products and services? We're a bit like Apple from a theoretical perspective, in that our garden is very walled. You can't just come in here and just start. We want to know who you are, what you're doing, what's your mission and vision in order to be able to get onto our ad network. But we run a huge ad network. We have air servers throughout all of our meeting rooms, 100 plus rooms that are seeing, different audience every 30 minutes. And when the screen's not in use for presentation, it's running ads. We run ads through our center as well. And that revenue is probably $4,000-$5,000 a center per month.
Now, on the topic of increasing revenue per member, we're seeing this pretty big trend of operators starting to expand their services outside of their member base. So taking services to landlords, taking services to neighboring businesses, providing a service to a wider network, normally throughout the building, but also in the surrounding neighborhood. Are you doing anything that extends the reach of your services that doesn't necessarily include selling square footage?
Yes, actively. So we're in discussions with a couple of our landlords. For number one, we have one landlord that has a vacant space in the building, and they were looking to convert it into amenity space for tenants of the building. And they came to us and they're like, "Hey, we want to just build this office with conference rooms." And that's really it. We want to offer it. We went back to them like, "Hey, well, these are the things you need to think about. This is how it gets done. You guys don't want to do this, right? You don't have the infrastructure for it. This is not what you do. Let us manage it, you." So we're now doing that in 2 of our buildings. And then it went well enough in one of our buildings that we're in discussion to actually, one of our landlords also has a residential portfolio, and they're looking to do the same thing, kind of have like a co-working space within their residential building. And they're like, "Hey, just come manage this for us."
Yes, we're actually doing it right now. So this is something that we've been able to experience with a few of our landlord partners. Obviously, it depends on the building and the type of property that they own, but there's one specific property that I'm thinking of that we do this quite well, and it's something that we're excited to explore more in the future. Right now, we are managing pretty much the whole campus for them. We are doing all of the community events. We're doing the meeting room spaces that they have that are included for their other tenants. So we're managing that. And right now, I would say before we came on, it was something that they were only utilizing once or twice a month. And then we were able to activate that space for them. We have certain landlords and developing partners that have gyms that could be on a certain floor for their buildings. They have asked us if we have wanted to manage that or if we want to bring in a third party as well. Wellness spaces aren't exactly in our wheelhouse when it comes to gym, but something that we've considered. But right now we're focusing on the community spaces, the local events for the whole campus. And there are these community managers that landlords are hiring to manage the whole building, could do the local happy hours and things like that. That's obviously something that we're already doing. So we just kind of grab that whole offering into what we're already accomplishing.
So we have a site in Collingwood. In the building, we have, in part of our membership, we have Lululemon. The floor above us, so we operate 4 floors in that site. Level 5 is Aesop, the cosmetics brand. And then the floor above that is Swiss Vitamins or Swiss Wellness, which is also quite a significant brand. Swiss and Aesop came to the building and actually slimmed their floors. So they don't have a lot of customer facing space on their floors. They actually meet all their customers on our ground floor, which has reception where our happiness team sits. It has meeting rooms, it has our cafe, and it has an event space. And so, in terms of offering it to the wider neighborhood, yeah, you can download our app and book a meeting room on demand, but actually inside the asset, we are enabling larger organizations to shrink their needs and actually act as the front door of their customer facing service. So not in as much as like Aesop has shops and all that, but like from a corporate head office perspective, every other day they're using our event space to present to people, which ordinarily, historically, probably would have happened on their own floors, in their own private meeting rooms, etc., but not here. And so we're seeing a lot more of that as we expand. Adelaide, the company that takes up the most space, has also shrunk there in LA and are plugging into our front, so that when their guest arrives, that experience is not on their staff, it's on us.
So in terms of other business lines that we offer to people that are not co-working members, we do, like all co-working spaces, offer our space on demand for day passes and conference room usage. You don't have to be a member to use those services. And of course, now that we added our event venue, that is a almost 10,000 square foot floor plate of different breakout rooms and meeting rooms in different configurations, and that has also opened the door to a different type of client that we didn't necessarily have. Of course, many of our clients use the space as well. So multinationals love that space, especially because it enables them to bring the whole company together. It enables them to bring even folks from the States or LATAM or other parts of the world and host them in a single venue that feels warm and cozy. So we do have that revenue. We also offer brokerage services aside from our spaces and from the buildings that we're in, of course, and all of the soft landing services we offer as well to clients that don't necessarily have to be members. Inevitably, they end up becoming members, and that's really the lesson here. You want to make sure that you have the availability of these services for the general public, but that's a shoe in. You want to convert that into a membership because in the end, we all know that we are in the membership business, right? So that's where it's at. You want to make sure that that monthly recurring revenue is as high as possible. And so as a result, when you look at our revenue stack, going back to that original question that you asked, you were probably surprised that we only have about 10% coming from these additional services and on-demand products. And it's because our team is so great at turning those one-time clients that come in through the door for these products into membership clients. And we do that with conference room memberships that we just launched, and event venue memberships, and virtual offices, of course, and our sort of cafe membership. So all of this is part of the strategy here.
Now, it's not all gravy. It's not all going to be bells and whistles, all not going to be up and to the right. Sometimes we try things, and the nature of experimentation and of trying to prove hypotheses is that sometimes we'll get it wrong. So we asked the experts in the room, what did you try that you thought was going to be an absolute no-brainer, running straight to the bank with piles of cash, but didn't exactly pan out?
I joke with my team that I am often trying to find some secret unlocked treasure chest, right? That there's got to be something we haven't thought of that just completely falls flat. And what I have experienced more than anything is when you are trying to monetize things that are better free, It never works, which is so simple, right? But a really good example of this is we had someone doing like chair massages in our space, and people loved them. And we're like, hey, if people love them so much, like they'll probably pay for them. And the second a dollar was attached to it, they're like, I don't want that anymore. So I think it's getting, potentially a little greedy, can be a little tricky there, but also we tend to like try and experiment a lot with our marketplace. So we have marketplaces in all of our locations where if you want like a Red Bull or a candy bar or something, that you're able to just like go and grab stuff. We try to monetize like laptop chargers and iPhone chargers because that's like the worst feeling in the world. Like you get to work and you forgot it or it breaks or something, and no one would ever buy one. They would always just go to the front desk, and because the front desk is so focused on hospitality, they had one and they passed it off. So it was just like a little bit of a fail there, but I think more than anything, it helped us understand like, okay, we don't need to monetize good hospitality. Like that's not what we're after here. Like let's focus more on the kind of like bonus bells and whistles and monetize that, and less just like these basics that people need. It's like charging for a Band-Aid. Like you wouldn't do that, but it's worth a try.
So I would say something that has shocked me in a bad way has been mail. And I know that this will probably rub some people the wrong way in the industry, but we're forced to offer mail. Of course we are. We're in the office, community, real estate business at the end of the day, but mail has so much human capital for us. It takes our team so long, and we've talked to mail providers or partners or different kinds of software as well, and it's something that we're continuing to figure out what is the best option for us. I have a really hard time justifying the amount of time and effort it takes our team based on how much we're actually making out of it. So it's this double-edged sword, right? Not a whole lot that we can do about it because, of course, we have to offer it.
Blocked, no. But in terms of rationalization of NLA, yeah, really like got it wrong. So, minimum viable product building one, which is still like, it's still in operation. It's 9 years. It's always full. But 50% of the inventory is open plan desks. And that ratio is just whacked. So, building two, that became 80% private office and 20%, and even that was too high. So at building three, we started to get it right.
The one thing I'll say that's really interesting and we learned over the last, I would say 2 or 3 years is, pre-COVID, we used to do a lot of dedicated desks. So, a step up from a hot desk, still kind of out in the general area, but you have a desk that's yours, right? You can leave a monitor there, you have a file cabinet, so on and so forth. I would say we used to have about 30 of those per location, just an area that's designed for dedicated desks. Post-COVID, we probably have 15 dedicated desk members portfolio wide. It's a product that's just completely evaporated. For us, people are just not interested in the shared dedicated desk. They're either doing co-working memberships or they're like, hey, I just want a private office. They're not interested in sharing a permanent area next to somebody, at least that we've seen in our portfolio. So we don't even, as I said, we're opening up and we're in talks for new spaces. Dedicated desks aren't even part of the new design.
I would say the day passes because with the way that we wanted to develop the community, it doesn't really feed into that ecosystem because, they buy a day pass and they don't really stick. So that's definitely one. Another thing would be actually the family friendly aspect and providing that access for children. We first designed, programs on weekends, after school ourselves that we run ourselves for the children of our members. But we realized that it is very resource heavy and it affects the bandwidth of the team. But we somehow pivoted and made it work by offering it to mission aligned teams that does the programming here at NARA as their home base, and they pay us for it.
Not to leave you on a negative foot, a lot of operators have been trying to introduce new, or at least new to them, products and services or SKUs. And it's really interesting to kind of look at what exactly those are. But instead of me trying to summarize it, let's hear from the experts. What did you try and were pleasantly or unexpectedly surprised with the good results?
Something that surprised me the most is how much opportunity we have to add on with our event business. It seems like every single lead or prospect or member that comes through our door, they have a very specific amount of money that they're able to spend, something that was able to be approved by whoever. On the flip side of that, an event, if someone needs to do a workshop or a training, it seems like the sky is essentially the limit there. So they feel almost relieved that we'll be able to take care of the transportation from the airport, the hotel, the catering, the team building activities that we can arrange with Topgolf or whatever. We are just tacking all of that on because what we're finding is a lot of these larger companies, this event or this programming or this training that they want to have monthly or quarterly or once or twice a year just got tacked on to somebody's job description, and it's not actually something that is that single person's sole responsibility. So it's almost this breath of fresh air when they find out that we're able to just handle all of this. It's just add to cart, add to cart, add to cart. And that's actually something that's opened up a lot of opportunity for us. We hire quite a bit of people from the hospitality industry, the event industry. We have a few people who plan weddings on the side. So it's in all of our team's wheelhouse, and it's something that we do very, very well. And that has expanded for us significantly over the last few years.
Yeah, so the daily office rentals, so taking vacant suites or vacant offices, we happen to be in a really unique position where across our portfolio, we have 10 sites. We have another 3 coming down the pipeline. But right now we have 10 locations throughout the US, and generally our mature locations hover at 88% plus occupancy. You know, we have half our portfolio is 100% full. But before that, or even in the locations that aren't performing, you know, at that level, what we'll do is we'll take the vacant offices, we'll put a rolling rack AV setup. So we'll put a TV, a video conferencing, and we'll use them as daily bookings. So a team that comes in could be one person that just has calls all day and doesn't want to be out in the common area. Conference rooms are booked. They can rent the office for the day. Or it could be a team. Again, we just had a team of lawyers. They're actually in our building at 55 Broadway, but they wanted to do a semi offsite. They rented one of our large suites for the day. They set up a long table. They brought in some food and beverage. They brought in the rolling rack, and they use it as an offsite for the day. So I would think that daily office rentals are really proving very, very valuable. And then the second thing is virtual mailboxes. You know, virtual mailboxes with people needing addresses and needing, especially with a lot of people or people in general working from home. Those people still need a business address. They don't want to put their apartment address if they're working from home. So they're using virtual mailbox as a way to kind of mitigate that.
Number one is the virtual mailbox service and offering, because in the beginning we thought it would just be an add-on for our founders that already have desks here. But the reality and how we were seeing it right now is that it almost become a feeder in our ecosystem that people and founders really need, like an address and business identity. But then we are able to move them into, I don't like to call it like a funnel, but more like a flywheel and an ecosystem almost. And through that, move them deeper into the community, get them more engaged. And in the process, it gets them to convert into a desk membership. The other one is our business solutions and community partner offerings. It ties up with how the current landscape of work looks like. We have a number of corporate clients that uses our space for offsites. They come in once, twice a month. It's good for a team because it doesn't take so much occupancy and overhead, but because they are corporate partners that needs the flexibility for the way their team is designed, it generates like a significant amount of our revenue. And again, like the community partner pass, which is a membership designed for mission aligned organizations and groups that needs a home base to conduct the workshops, trainings, or programming for the community.
Yeah, virtuals. It's just still, it blows my mind. We have great addresses for some of our centers, specifically in downtown markets, in CBDs. Um, there is a growing. We've rolled it out across the group, so probably out of the 12 centers in Melbourne, um, 3 or 4 of them were really like high virtual business. And when I sort of vacated the CEO position, and handed the reins over to Michael Benson, he was like, "Tobes, you're missing so much revenue here." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" Michael's 11 years older than me. Um, it doesn't make sense to me to have someone answer my phone and book an appointment for me, or act as my EA. I just do shit myself, right? But actually, I'm wrong. I've completely missed a huge opportunity. So we're rolling that out. 3 or 4 centers had it. We're rolling that out company wide. And I've been surprised that some of our suburban markets picking up some really great virtual business. But then coupled with that, they get coming in to use the meeting rooms. So we're packaging it up. So it's not just phone answering an address. It's we've got mail service. You can have a whole bunch of meeting room access. Some people like, hey, I want a virtual address. I want to use the meeting rooms, and I want to plug into a desk for a few hours every other day. So we were packaging this stuff up in different ways for different members. And man, it blows my mind. Furthermore, our Rise business is also quite significant. We used to, for nearly 8 years, be a sponsor of EO, Entrepreneur Org, and the thesis there was that if I put EO into our centers and create and Q's becomes the clubhouse for EO in Melbourne, Australia, how many of my members are going to plug into EO, and how many of the EO members are actually going to plug into Cubes? After 8 years, I'm sad to say that it wasn't as juicy or healthy as I thought it would be. In both directions, my member was like, "Look, I need this, but for whatever reason, it doesn't fit." And then on the flip side, the EO community, who are like some of the biggest movers and shakers in Australia, or in Melbourne specifically, they were very established and weren't really interested in the products and services that we had to offer. So we listened to our member, and understood their pain points, and have built Rise as a result, which is branded up separately because Cubes is really the office space, Rise being the network that people join, and a service. That's been a really great, and it's growing. It's super early. We got millions of dollars of revenue per month in all these other things, and Rise is like $20,000 odd, and I'm so pumped about it by comparison. But I can see the adoption becoming quite significant. That it'll be a multi-million-dollar revenue stream for us in time.
I'm going to go back to additional entities as being that revenue source that was unexpected. We didn't realize that we had so many serial entrepreneurs in our membership base. And I think that is a result of our own members not wanting to pay for full fee virtual offices. So many of them would start getting these letters for different entities in our mailroom. And I've spoken a lot about this in the past, that we view our mailrooms as profit centers and also as community building centers, to be honest. But when you have a well-organized mailroom and you have great software to accompany it, then what happens is that you start picking up on these trends. You're like, wait a second, this guy doesn't have this company, he's at this other company. And they try to kind of get away with it at first, right? Because it is going to be, $80 more a month. And when we started seeing that more and more, we said, hey, there's something here. There's a lot of revenue that we are potentially missing out on because it's not well priced and it's not well structured. So that's when we created the additional entity add-on. And the minute we did that, then we started getting a lot of calls And we started reaching out to the clients that we saw were receiving mail for other entities that were not the ones they originally registered their membership under. And as a result, we were really able to increase that average ticket price for our virtual offices. So I'd say that by far that has been the most surprising and probably the least talked about revenue source in co-working. And that's my gift to all of you. Start charging smaller fees for your additional entities.
So to bring it all home, we've heard what the stack looks like, the revenue stack looks like. We've heard what we've all tried and maybe didn't pan out for specific operators. We've heard what they tried and did work out. But before we go, what tips could you give to other operators who are exploring how to increase the lifetime value of their members without adding more square footage?
There's a number of pro tips that I have, and I could go probably on and on, but I think one of the most important ones is related to pricing if you have more than one location. So I see this a lot in virtual office memberships, but it's also applicable to other types of memberships as well that are recurring and that are not private office. You want to make sure that you price differently. It may sound like more work. It may sound like something that you don't want to do, but there's a very big reason why you want to do this. Chances are that if you have more than one co-working location in a city or a region, that one of those locations has a more desirable zip code than the other, right? So the key to virtual office success in terms of increasing revenue and increasing that average ticket price for your entire offering is to make sure that each location you have is priced adequately to the market vis-a-vis that zip code desirability. So the higher your zip code desirability, the more you should charge for that offering, even if it is the same offering across all of your locations. And I'm going to say that again. You can have 3 virtual office plans, which is what we recommend, right? And they can have the same exact offering across all of your locations. You want to keep that uniform for simplicity, but you can charge different price points for them if you have locations that are in more desirable zip codes. And you should, because what's going to happen is that inevitably your average ticket price across that business unit is going to go up. And that is also the name of the game. The final thing I would say is put a membership around it. We do that very successfully, and it is the best way to work your way towards that profitability and to even higher profit margins. You want to make sure you have as much monthly recurring revenue as possible. And you can do that with a lot of the things that you're currently doing now. You can do it around day passes. You could do it around conference room usage. You can do it around meeting room space. But make it recurring and try it out, right? Try out different variations and see how that moves your bottom line and helps you create more revenue. That is the good revenue that I always love to talk about, which is revenue that frees you from your square footage cap.
Again, we have the benefit right now where we have a lot of full spaces. And one of the things that we just went through is a pricing increase for members, whether it's renewals or new members. And it comes off as scary, right? Like it's like, hey, because you don't build in price increases, or at least we don't. We don't say like in your agreement, hey, like when we sign a lease, we know the 3rd year our rent's going up to X. In co-working, at least for us, that's not the case. The price increase is predicated on how the market's doing, right? Market's doing well right now. Our spaces are full. So now we're increasing across the board. And it comes with a little bit of fear, I guess, fear from managers more who have the relationships with the members to say, hey, you have to spend more for this space. Members come back. I've been with you 18 months. I've been a great partner. I don't think I should have to pay more, so on and so forth. So it's kind of like managing that expectation of, hey, we're running a business, we need to make more money. The best way to do that is to charge more for our seats. Our spaces are full, so there's demand for it, right? So supply and demand, and we have to start charging more. And we appreciate our members, we appreciate the relationships that we have. But again, we have to like strike while the iron's hot and be able to understand that we obviously have a valuable product that people are willing to pay for, and we need to start charging more for it. So we actually just brought on a corporate role specifically for renewals. So we were having managers do it directly, but now there is a corporate role who is directly responsible for renewals to kind of help mitigate that friction. But the friction's still there, right? Because you're going to get an email from the renewal person. The first thing the member's doing, they're responding to the renewal person, they're CCing the manager. So they're still involved with it, but we're trying to like remove it away from the manager so that they're not directly involved with like being called the bad guy.
I would say it seems obvious, but have sit down conversations with your members and ask them what they want. I think a lot of us in the industry, we get a member in, we get them moved into their office, and then we really don't dig into what's working or what isn't working until they're about ready to re-sign for their contract. So having that member journey along the way, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, whatever the timeline is, really digging in and saying, is this offering what you actually need? And then almost every time during those conversations that we have, there will be some kind of opportunity for a referral, an upgrade, some kind of upsell in those conversations. A lot of people in our spaces, or a lot of members that walk in the door, they think they need a certain product, but usually it's actually something different. So we're able to make sure that we're able to work within their budget and expand for them. And it turns out to be, they look at us as we're their partner in their business growth. And then we're able to get them actually what they need. And then that turns into more revenue for us.
So for us, we put our member at the center of everything we do. And we don't build products and services for vanity. We build products and services because they're telling us in a direct or indirect way, this is what they need in order to not only be successful in what they do, but ultimately like engage with us as an operator. And so with that mentality and that service and hospitality focus, it's not about us. It's about delivering experiences and delivering products and services on our properties that our members need. And so it's not about what have I learned in the industry or whatnot. My wife, who I've been with for nearly 25 years now, when we first met, it was a massive lesson in trying to sort of build a beautiful relationship. There was a lot of hard lessons that I need to learn up front. And I'm probably not unique, but one of the lessons was 2 ears, 1 mouth. Listen twice as much as you speak. And actually, when we run our NPSs, Net Promoter Scores, our members are telling us exactly what they want. And it might not be, Tobi, we need this, this, and this, but it might be, through the messaging or through the conversation and through conversations at scale and through data sets coming in, you can find the through line. And so when you open a new center and you add that additional product or service or experience, members are like, oh my God, you thought of everything. Not really. we were just humble enough to listen and understand the needs of our customer. And you indirectly or directly told us through engagement, and we've procured because this is not about us, it's about you.
Yeah, I think my biggest recommendation is just be creative. Just try it. Like if you're trying to increase revenue per member, like when's the last time you asked your members what they wanted? When's the last time you looked at your expenses and you're like, we're spending a lot on this. I think people are really into it. Let me ask myself, is that something that if I made a little bit better that someone would pay a little bit more to access? Or is it something I want to just like kind of keep in the mix and that's not the thing I want to mess with? I know there are people who have introduced like lockers into their spaces because they found people were looking for better storage opportunities. I think that's a really easy one. We offer Kisi in our spaces, which has an app, but some people wanted fobs. So now we charge people for fobs. There are infinite ways to increase your revenue as long as you promise yourself and your teams to stay creative and stay flexible, right? Not everything's going to work. And that's okay. That doesn't mean you give up. That doesn't mean you go back to your old model. It just means that you have to continue to adapt, overcome, try again. And if you can successfully repeat that process enough times over, you'll be in the clear and your revenue will be through the roof.
Yes, and I can go on and on about it, but I would say I would narrow it down to three. The first one is definitely know your numbers and definitely plan ahead. I think co-working in general is associated with a lot of fixed cost, and it comes especially the lease if you have like a big space. So it comes with like a lot of planning, a lot of understanding on how you're able to design a product suite that first will be able to support those operating costs, but at the same time make it scalable and something that people really resonate with. The second one I would say is just, again, like not looking at the sales and marketing as a funnel, but instead a flywheel that builds an ecosystem on how you can generate your leads. So for us, again, it comes with three different things. It's like knowing what your anchors are, what makes people sticks, and what feeds the ecosystem so that members and guests moves deeper into the community and into your membership. The third one would be, and it goes for everyone in business, not just for co-working, is never set yourself on fire to keep other people warm. Co-working could be very, you get very involved and you get very passionate about, making your members happy and making the community happy. But you should also be very strategic on what's working and on what's not, so that, like a pivot is not that you made a mistake or it's not working.
And so you have it. We learned from 7 operators from all across the world, processing millions and millions of dollars in revenue. The one thing is for sure, a lot has changed over the last 20 years of co-working, especially the kinds of products that we offer, the types of services we tie in, and the way we're all evolving and changing our revenue stack. Thank you very much for watching or listening or reading. This Week in Co-working Undercurrents will be back for the next edition, diving deep into dynamic pricing. Till then, take care and keep chasing that great revenue.